Hello, and welcome to the Lucy Liu Show, the fueling station for your mind, business, and life. And now, here's your host, Lucy Liu.
Hello, beautiful souls. Another beautiful day on the horizon and sending you so much positive vibes through this podcast episode. I'm a big believer of the fact that you are never too old to reinvent yourself. Perfectly normal to hit the reset button and refresh your life any given day and time in your life. And that's why I'm bringing you my next guest today, Cepee Tibibian, who is the founder of She Hit Refresh, a global community for women who want to take a break from routine and start a life of travel, either travel around the world long term or to even move abroad. She is the host of the She Hit Refresh podcast, a native Texan who has been living in Spain for the past 6 years, and she's got a great digital book, I'm Out of Here, An American's Ultimate Visa Guide to Living in Europe. This book was featured in Forbes and is your one-stop shop for understanding the 17 easiest countries to move to in Europe based on over 50 plus viable visa options. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of hitting refresh. So if you are looking to hit refresh in your life, enjoy our conversation. Hi, Cepee. I'm so excited to talk to you again.
Hi, Lucy. So great to be on.
Yay. So I invited you to tell us your story about hitting refresh. We'd love to learn what you did and how you did it.
Yeah, definitely. Really happy to share my story of hitting refresh in case if it helps anyone else out there looking to hit refresh. And hitting refresh just means changing your life in a big way. And for the context of what I did, it's in regards to travel, to moving abroad. So I hit refresh in 2015 when I was 35 years old. I'm now 41. And I left my great life in Austin, Texas. I'm from Texas, and moved to Madrid, Spain. I came on my own. I had quit my job. I sold my car, put my stuff in storage, rented out my condo, and moved to Madrid on my own to just seek out a new life. It's something that I had wanted to do, maybe not for a long time. Well, in my 20s, I had spent a lot of time back and forth in Spain trying to make it work, but teaching English was the only path. So at 35, I thought, let me try this again and see if I can make it work on my terms. And so I did it. And 6 years later, here I am still in Spain.
Wow. You mentioned there's not much to do besides teaching English. So exactly what led you to you staying in Spain?
Yes, definitely. Well, to get my foot in the door, I had to teach English. So there's a great program that the Spanish government has where you can come be a language assistant. And in that, they provide you a visa, healthcare, a stipend, and you really only work 16 hours a week. So it's not a bad gig. It's not sustainable long term, but definitely to get my foot in the door, I came and taught English that first year with the mindset of I'm going to hustle and find my way out of teaching. Given that I'm a U.S. citizen, it is hard for U.S. citizens to get a work visa here. So I knew that was going to be very difficult. But surprisingly, a company did sponsor me and I ended up getting a work visa and worked for a little bit there, but that's not how I'm still here. I actually ended up leaving that job shortly after because it just wasn't what I came here to do. I didn't come here to do another 9 to 5. And so I eventually moved into what is called a non-lucrative visa and I work remotely. And so that's how I am still here.
You know, when we were younger, we were more free to travel the world, right? We can stay at a YMCA, bunk with friends, have fun. But as we age, so many of us have more responsibilities than when we were younger, like career, family, loans, like you say, your condo, your car, your mortgage, relationship. Oh my gosh, right? All these responsibilities total up and we start to question if traveling the world, the dreams we had, and all these changes are possible or even realistic at all. What was your biggest struggle?
Yeah, definitely. That is so true. I think the weight of all the responsibilities that come with getting older definitely can hold people back from moving forward. But I definitely want to say, there are ways to work through that. And people are doing that every day, moving abroad or traveling with those responsibilities. So for me, probably the biggest thing was maybe not so much material things, but I think a little bit my ego, in the sense of I spent a lot of my life traveling. So I didn't really climb the career ladder. But at 35, I was in a place place where I had a good job. I had just gotten promoted. I felt like I was actually finally fitting into this conventional life and doing it, even though it never felt like the right thing to me. And so to have to give that up and go teach English, something that, this program that I did in Spain, I actually did it when I was 26. I lived for a year in Spain. So to actually have to kind of, for me, it felt like taking a step back and having to tell people that and kind of take on their fears and maybe their judgment of what I was doing was hard for me to move through. But ultimately, I knew I had to do what I needed to do for me. If people think what I'm doing is crazy or that I'm ruining my career or XYZ, those are their fears. I had to do what I needed to do.
But actually, you found out that you're not alone in your situation because you created this whole community of women like you, and they span from anywhere from 30 years old to all the way up to 70 years old.
Yes. Isn't that incredible? I did. So when I moved to Madrid, it took me a while to find my people. I think whenever you're starting over, it takes time to build your life in a new place, a new country, new culture. So along the way, I met so many people, and about 2.5 years in, I met just so many people who I really connected with, especially women who had moved, a lot of them from the US, but different places in the world, and had started over in Spain and weren't teaching English. So they really came here and were creating this new path for themselves. A lot of them were entrepreneurs, remote workers, and it really just blew my mind. And they were my age range too. So these weren't women who were fresh out of college or in their early 20s doing a gap year. They were women who made these choices later in life. And through that, meeting them and also having peers and friends in the US ask me, how did I do it? Wasn't I scared? Wasn't I too old to do this? Having them ask me all these questions, I just realized, there weren't a lot of resources out there for women of a certain age who wanted to radically change their lives. A lot of things were geared towards, like I said, either gap years when you're younger or like a 2-week vacation, solo travel for women over 50 in Thailand. It was something very short term. And so meeting all these women, led me to this idea of creating an online space where we could connect, share information, and support each other.
So how would you say was your best resource to overcoming your fears of leaving the old life of comfort, stability, and security for the unknown?
Yeah. I think initially I guess before I left, what helped a lot was preparing. So I gave myself about 8 months worth of time to prepare financially. When you're making a big move, you definitely don't want to have that stress of money because money, as we all know, for those who have moved abroad, it goes a lot faster than you think. So definitely preparing financially, of course, preparing legally, like, what visa I'm going to have, making sure that was taken care of, and also figuring out how to kind of close up shop on my life in the US. So that helped make that initial leap. And then once I got abroad, I think what really helped me, because there are tough times when you're abroad where you doubt your choice, doubt what you're doing because things may not be going to plan, or you're going to inevitably face obstacles. I think through those moments, it was just meeting other people who got me and who didn't think that what I was doing was crazy or out of the ordinary. There were people here who were doing the same things, facing the same challenges, but also finding success in their path and journey.
Mm-hmm. And throughout your years with this community that you've built of thousands of women, what common themes do you see behind their refresh?
Yeah. So the community She Hit Refresh is now over 8,000 women worldwide. We're a really diverse group of women. And like you said, age range from 30 to in their 70s and from all walks of life, single, with children, divorced, widowed. And so I think the common thing is that one, I think people, that find the community are so excited because many people have felt quite alone in their desires to radically change their life in this way, to move abroad or quit their career of X amount of decades to travel the world. The people around them just don't get it. And so finding this community where they are empowered to dream big and supported in making these dreams a reality, I think that's a common theme of just feeling isolated and then finding a group who gets you and how refreshing that is. And I think the second thing is just, there's a lot of people who don't want to live the conventional life, who weren't built to do a 9 to 5 forever, who don't want to live in the same place for the rest of their life and keep up with the Joneses and just measure success in job titles and their bank account and how big their house is. And so when you're surrounded by that, you may think that's the only path, but there's so many people out there that I think a common theme is just that they feel like what society deems for us as successful is just not meshing with how they feel.
So what would you say are the top pros and cons of hitting refresh?
Yeah, that's great question. I think the top pros are one, you get to live the life you always dreamed of. It may not turn out the way that you think, but just going on this journey is so liberating. You learn so much about yourself and your life can blossom in ways that you may not have ever imagined. So I think just having that life experience, giving that gift to yourself is definitely a pro of it. Two, I think there's a pro in learning what you're made of. At any time in life when we face adversity and challenges, we see how strong we really are. And when you do a move like this or change your life like this, especially on your own, you realize like you can take on anything and do anything. So I think those are some of the big pros. Some of the cons, I don't know if there are any cons. I would say, well, one of them maybe, when you change your life like this, if you're really close to your friends and family, that's always a downside, is not having all the people you love in one place. You start to straddle, especially the more you live somewhere else, you start to straddle these two worlds, and your heart and your life is in more than one place. And so that can be challenging. And I think maybe not a con, but more of a challenge is, like I mentioned earlier, it does take time to build your world, to create your life abroad. So that's not something that is going to happen overnight or even within the first year. So it does take time for that.
Yes, and it's becoming more challenging with the global pandemic. I know we both traveled back from our new countries to our home-based countries during COVID. So how was traveling like for you back to the States?
Yes. So I went back last summer for the first time since COVID, and I hadn't been back home, I think, in a year and a half. It actually wasn't all too bad. I had during COVID, I was in Spain, which had a very heavy lockdown, but then things opened up. And so I had done a little travel within Spain. So I wasn't so fearful. I know a lot of people who hadn't traveled for a while were very paranoid and anxious about it. So I didn't really have the fears of flying overseas back home. And actually, it was just really exciting to be back. It was very strange to see the different ways that countries or communities and states are dealing with COVID, wearing masks indoors, some places don't. So just kind of navigating that was really interesting. But I would say it wasn't as stressful as maybe I anticipated it to be. And actually, it was just really great to finally have that opportunity to see family again after so much time.
Yeah, I think I like that point you mentioned. It's actually easier than you anticipate, right? We always overthink, and our fear is far greater sometimes than reality.
Definitely. And I can say wearing a mask on a plane for 8, 9, 10 hours isn't as bad as it sounds.
I'm totally with you. I thought I was going to die because I wore 2 layers of mask, but I made it. It wasn't that hard.
Right?
So what would you say for any women who is going through some tough time and they are scattered or unsure of their future and is thinking about hitting a refresh in their life? What are your top tips?
Yeah, definitely. First thing is you're not crazy. The way you're thinking is in alignment with so many women out there. So first, just reassure yourself like your wild idea is something that you can bring to fruition. Some of my key tips are, one, definitely have a plan. So start thinking about things, that are very important. Where do you want to go? Can you actually live there? And so, you just can't pick up and move anywhere. You need to get a visa. You need to find out the legal requirements. And can you afford to? So you want to make sure financially you can make that move and not be struggling. I do want to say, though, you do not need to be wealthy to make a change. You can definitely make a change on a modest budget. So just making sure you have all the logistics in place. And then 2, I would say, is find a community. Again, if you don't feel comfortable sharing your dreams with the people that you have around you in person, or you are sharing those and you're not getting the support that you need, find a community that understands you. And if you can't find one where you're at, go virtually. I mean, that's the beauty of the online world, is there's so many communities out there for all kinds of people to find your people out there. And so definitely do that, because that's going to help reinforce that you're making the right decisions if you really feel like this is what you want to do. And you'll also find resources on how to do it and talk to those who have already done it.
Absolutely. How important do you think that the language barrier is?
Yeah, that's another great question because I do see this come up where people are fearful of maybe moving to a country where they don't speak the language. And I would say don't let that stop you. Definitely, we always want to learn the language of where we're living. So that's something that you can prepare for before you go. Definitely take classes, but you don't need to be fluent in a language before you move to another country. That's something that you will pick up while you're there. You definitely have to put the work in, but there are ways to navigate, in a different language, whether that's through resources or finding people who can help you and just, like all of us just struggling through it until we get to that level where we can really 100% speak the language well, but definitely don't let that hold you back.
Yay. So if you are interested in learning more about hitting refresh, check out Cepee's website at shehitrefresh.com. She's also got a great podcast. You can learn all about women's stories from around the world about how they've left their conventional old life behind and hit refresh. So, Cepee, is there a favorite quote that you go by when the days gets hard?
Well, I think, one quote that I come back to a lot is one by Mary Oliver. And it's one that just reminds me of how fortunate, I am, or how fortunate we all are if we're here, if we're above, 6 feet above ground. The quote is, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And so that just reminds me not to take things so seriously, but to also take life seriously and do the things that I want to do and I want to accomplish, with the time that I have here.
Yeah, great reminder. Thank you for your wisdom, Cepee.
Thank you so much.
To all the beautiful souls listening, thank you for joining me on this episode of The Lucy Liu Show. When I'm not podcasting, I am coaching high-achieving women in life transitions, getting unstuck, kissing overwhelmed goodbye, and living a more joyful and fulfilled life through strategic goal setting and mindset transformation. It would mean the world to me if you subscribe, rate, or share this with a friend. And don't forget to join me for the next episode. Remember, there is always a way and more blessings are coming your way. For free resources and show notes, head over to lucylucoaching.com.